Hello and welcome to The Last Mixtape. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we review Lana Del Rey's brand new singles Henry Come On and Bluebird, and the latest music from the week that was. But first, nothing behind me, everything ahead of me, and is ever so on the road. Not my words, but the words of the great American novelist Jack Kerouac. Why, dear listener, and indeed, dear viewer, am I quoting the 1957 novel On the Road at the beginning of this week's show? Well, dear listener, and indeed, dear viewer, I thought this week we would review the brand new singles from Lana Del Rey, Henry Come On, and Bluebird. Indeed, that is Kerouac, and that is how I feel Lana Del Rey is at this very moment in time, looking ahead to the road in front of her, and indeed slightly looking behind to the one that she has already travelled with the brand new singles Henry Come On and indeed Bluebird. These songs feel like less about heartbreak but more about escapism and the dying of the American dream. One track is a quiet plea to just hold on a little bit longer, while the other is the dream of setting oneself free and getting away from everything that has come before. These pair of singles don't feel just like a new single drop from an artist trying to get traction. It is a greater story in what has been an incredible career from Lana Del Rey, which has been a journey from here to now and one of the American story itself. Lana Del Rey's latest songs don't announce themselves. They don't beg for plays or chase headlines. Henry Come On and Bluebird arrive like postcards from a place just past the edge of memory. Quiet, sun-faded, and maybe not even real anymore. Both tracks are steeped in stillnessness. Henry is a slow-motion plea, an almost whispered confrontation with something slipping away. And Bluebird, a companion piece that floats away like a private mantra, a soft song meant only for her own ears. There's barely any production, just warm acoustic guitar, swelling strings, Lana's voice in close, and a reverb haze like morning fog. It's not minimalism for style points, it's emotional minimalism. These aren't songs for radio. They're songs for quiet moments we usually try to ignore. Henry Come On isn't a breakup song. It sounds more like a plea to a fading memory. Henry isn't a man, he's a metaphor. Perhaps he is a fading dream, a memory of a once golden and hazy America, one that Lana Del Rey, the writer, and us, the listener, cannot return to. It's not a song bathed in desperation, but rather a whisper before the door finally closes. Here is not a Lana holding on to the past so much as saying goodbye before slowly turning around and walking out the door. If Henry Come On is the moment before letting go, then Bluebird is the soft release that follows. It's a gentle mirror of the same emotion, but quieter and somehow even more private. She sings anything to let you sing, like she's letting herself go. Because Bluebird doesn't feel like a message to a lover or a friend. The song lives in the same dreamy, lo-fi soundscape as Henry, acoustic, minimal, and shrouded in reverb. But where Henry pleads for something to stay, Bluebird seems to accept that everything, love, identity, memory, is always on the way out, or in a state of flux. That's the thread tying these two songs together. Not heartbreak, not loss. But that quiet shift between wanting something to return and deciding it's okay if it never does. There is something beautiful about the anachronistic juxtaposition of Lana Del Rey's music. A kind of a callback to the 1950s and 60s Americana and the hazy kind of golden age of Hollywood almost. I absolutely loved her recent albums, Chemtrails Over the Country Club and Did You Know There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard. Always takes me a bit of time to remember the names in terms of her albums, but I absolutely love it. I think she's quite a singular artist, and I think she's an artist that sometimes is misconstrued or sometimes misrepresented as just kind of being that, as this kind of this hazy, almost ghost of a golden age of Hollywood or of Los Angeles or music and stuff like that. And I think it belies the real artistry and craft behind her and her music. There is not as defined maybe as stages as maybe like, you look at a Taylor Swift or something like that, or a David Bowie in terms of like people who go through periods in their music and stages and kind of stuff like that. We're talking about that with Bon Iver recently. But I think her music does have that. It does have these stages of her life, stages of where she is, stages of, I believe, of where America is. I think a lot of her songwriting and a lot of even the titles, Norman fucking Rockwell and stuff like that, speak to that kind of, that ideal of America, that ideal place where maybe she wants to find herself, that ideal place to escape away to, going to the Jacques Kerouac of it all, and going to On the Road, and that in search of an America that may no longer exist in the same way, or may have never existed. Maybe it only exists in the hands or the voice of an artist. Maybe those worlds were never truly worlds at all, but maybe they appear on the page, they appear on the painting, on the palette, they appear on the record, as it were. Henry, Come On, and Bluebird are, to me, just such an example of that. And it's interesting, like, listening to Bluebird this morning before recording, of just like how beautifully put together it is. And, there's a little bit of on McLean about it in certain aspects. There's that kind of aspect of the Starry Night. There's that aspect of, as I say, the Americana of it. But it is truly central. When you press play and you hear her voice, it's Lana Del Rey. And there are very few artists who can say that instantly who it is. And they have a style, they have a kind of a feel to them. It's one that, I think, as I say, can be misconstrued or even parodied, but sometimes parody is the show of true artistry, in kind of like a reflection, a comedic reflection sometimes, that to know or to be able to kind of rip off a Lana Del Rey sound or song means that she has become so singular and so such a presentation of herself. I think there is something as well in the kind of the idea that these aren't songs particularly strictly about love lorn or love lost, but maybe about a world that is being lost, and maybe a world that you want to hold on to, but you can't, and a world that you want to escape from, like the Bluebird in the second, in her most recent track. I think Bluebird is again beautiful. As I say, it has that Starry Night, Don McLean-esque, himself a purveyor of Americana with American Pie. And I think it's one of those, she's one of those artists that I think, when you look at her body of work, look at what she has done to this point, I think it's truly amazing. And I think it is up there with the most generational artists of the last 20 years. It's interesting, when she first released Video Games, there were all these questions and about the authenticity of it. I remember there was a lot of conversation around that when that was a thing people would do, as if that really mattered. I always bring back the idea that the Sex Pistols were in no way authentic. They were constructed by Vivienne Westwood and Don McLean in a sex shop in London. So what are we talking about when we talk about authenticity? I think authenticity is the authenticity of the artists themselves in an ability to convey what they want to convey to you, the listener. How does it matter? So I think she is incredible at that. And I think Henry, Come On, and Bluebird, as the new songs, as the new start of a new cycle or whatever it is, shows that artistry. As I say, did you know there is a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard? I had to look to see the whole title. I loved that album too, because it felt so, I don't want to say retro, because I think it felt so anachronistic that it could have been recorded at any time. There's some beautiful moments in that. The song in which they do the take of the vocal harmonies and had to stop because it wasn't quite right. It does kind of call back to that golden age of recording of soul and of R&B and that kind of almost Dusty Springfield-esque kind of recordings. And yeah, I think these two tracks do speak to that, do speak to Ray's ability to craft America and craft around kind of love songs, around feelings, around kind of an idealistic version of maybe a world she wanted to escape to, and a world that may never have been. And I think that sometimes is in the power of the artist. As I say, with Jack Kerouac and On the Road, it is that ability to go in search of something. In another way, it's Hunter S. Thompson, isn't it? It's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, maybe a more violent style of that, but in search perhaps of a great Americana in a time where that America is at risk, in a time where that America, how people view it is at risk, how it views itself is at risk. It's a dangerous place. And I think it's incredibly fitting that Lana Del Rey at this time, through her own way, through her own artistic palette, is conveying that to the listener once again. And I think these two tracks, Henry, Come On, and Bluebird, are absolutely beautifully crafted. For most of her career, Lana Del Rey has been a chronicler of the American dream and its slow motion unraveling. She sang about it in Technicolor, Hollywood icons, classic cars, broken hearts wrapped in stars and stripes. Henry, Come On, and Bluebird feel like that final fade out. There's no myth left to hold on to, no golden hour to preserve. Just Lana quietly stepping away from it all. She's not disillusioned, but done waiting for something that was never real to begin with. These songs don't offer answers or catharsis. They just exist, like dust in the aftermath of one of those classic cars, or like the last page of a novel no one finished. In a time when such music screams to be heard, Lana whispers something you'll only catch if you're still. So maybe this isn't Lana Del Rey's next big move, but maybe it's a small personal one, a one whispered to herself, a bluebird in the hands, if you will, and a man named Henry who never existed in the first place. Indeed, there is nothing behind me, everything in front of me, and so is ever on the road. Dear listener, they seek him here, they seek him there, those musos seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven or is he at the disco? That damned elusive Count of Monte playlist. Oh yes, the styling profile, limousine riding, jet flying, playlist making son of a gun has returned once again from the shores of Playlistia to bring you another beautiful bounty in the form of TLMT's Irish mixtape on Spotify. Sound the horns and dim the lights for the Count of Monte playlist has returned once more, starting off with God Knows and his brand new single, The Observer. Indeed, God Knows has been featured on the playlist here by the Count of Monte playlist before, and he has returned himself with a brand new single. It's very interesting because I remember just after we did the review here on the last mixtape of his last previous song, he appeared on the Tommy Tiernan show and I was seeing clips of it, and he said something very, very interesting in that interview where he said I believe I'm paraphrasing now, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but he said that his trade and his business was words. He was in the business of words, and I really liked that. It was something to that, or a wordsmith or something to that effect, which I really liked, that he's kind of like, well, my trade and stock, what I trade in is words. And what I really love about this song in particular is that proves it. It is done at a really fast pace. He delivers and he raps and he rhymes at such a quick pace that it really fits in with that idea that he is fitting in everything he needs to say and it has to be said, and he's condensing it down into what is essentially a 3 to 4 minute track, and that he's wasting no time. There is no fat on the bone with this one. It is lean. It is a song that uses words in a very economical way, in a very fast-paced way, and he delivers them indeed. So, the wordsmith that is God Knows with his brand new single, The Observer, it is on the playlist. Check it out! Next, we have Nick with the brand new single, IWSR. I Was So Wrong. Indeed, this is a kind of a neon shimmering pop track and very much kind of evocative maybe of, we were talking about Lana Del Rey at the beginning of this show, that kind of haziness, that breathiness. I often bring it up on the show here, that kind of idea of, the idea of whispering softly and drawing the listener ever closer with the voice and bringing them into the world of the music, and that Great Gatsby thing of Daisy Buchanan doing so in the novel. And I think such is it with IWSR. It is a song that has that kind of neon shimmering. It has a beautiful production. There's things that offset it. There's kind of I don't want to call it an off key, but there's kind of this augmented line, a melody line in the background that plays beautifully beneath it, and then you have the core and the anchor of Nick's performance in the foreground, really kind of bringing you into that world and really bringing you into the world of the song. So a very welcome return from Nick with I Was So Wrong, or IWSR. It's on the playlist. Check it out. Up next, we have acclaimed Irish songwriter Paddy Hanna with a brand new track of his, Tucson, Arizona. It is taken from his brand new album, Olagate. And I tell you what I really liked about this, and the album itself is an incredible album. It is out now. You must check it out. You simply must. But Paddy has returned with a really interesting and stylized album that is very different from what he has done before. He's an artist who has kind of gone into the Burt Bacharach world of music in the past, and is kind of going into kind of a more minimalist one. This one, Tucson, Arizona, is really, I think, evocative of Bowie for me. David Bowie in his kind of Berlin period, in kind of low tracks like albums like that, or maybe so much The Lodger and stuff, but it has that kind of cold background to it. And again, this album is very much inspired by a kind of like Soviet era music and ideas, and it is as I say, very stylized. And there's something as well about the way Paddy's voice fits with that almost Bowie-esque croonerism. Paddy's quite a crooner himself, so the idea that he fits in with the way that Bowie does with the Berlin series really fits on this, really fits in Tucson, Arizona. It does feel like it wouldn't be out of place on maybe the first half of Low and all of Lodger and maybe bits of Heroes. But yeah, it has that feeling of it, that kind of idea of David Bowie and Iggy Pop on a train through Germany and Poland and writing about and seeing the world outside. And it does have that kind of feel to it. And it's great to see Paddy back with such a great and stylized album. Do check it out. It's called Ullagate. This track is called Tucson, Arizona. And it's been chosen by the Count of Monte playlist, though. Next up, we have Varro featuring Ian Lynch with Sweet Liberty. And this is very interesting because only last week we had Poor Creatures, which was made up of members of Landless and Lankum. And this one features Ian Lynch from Lankum, coming together with the lads from Varro and their brand new single, Sweet Liberty. And indeed, yeah, it plays into that world. It plays into that like very kind of drone-laden, beautifully placed, beautifully performed kind of a trad, kind of the reinvention. I want to say, yeah, the reinvention almost of trad music within the Irish sphere, the modernization perhaps of it through a new lens, through a different lens, through a more modern lens, which is incredible. And it's great to see artists delving into that. I think Varro really kind of come together, their voices, their harmonies with Ian Lynch's perfectly. I think there's a really nice textural mix in there as well with the musicianship and with the playing on this record. And it's just really, really great stuff. And as I say, plays into the wider sphere of the modernization of Irish trad or folk or whatever you want to call it now with bands like Lankum and Landless and others as well. So yeah, I think this is really cool. It's a really cool collaboration between both Varro and Ian Lynch. It is called Sweet Liberty, and it is on the playlist. And last but by no means least, we have Fontaine's DC with their brand new single, Before You, I Just Forget. And this is from their brand new, their deluxe version, as is the sign of the times, of Romance, their most recent album that we reviewed on the last mixtape previously, and we absolutely loved. It's an incredible album by an incredible Irish band, and this track is very interesting. It didn't make it onto the original album. It does make it here, which is kind of cool, and it does have a little bit of that collaboration that Green Chanton did with Kneecap last year as well. There's a little bit, I don't want to say it's rapped, it's more spoken word. We're kind of more into that kind of area of it, but kind of very similar in performance and similar in kind of presentation in that way. While it's also wrapped within in the kind of sonic milieu of Romance itself. You can see where perhaps the work was done on it, and maybe they were kind of playing around with it a bit, and it didn't quite just make the record. But it is a really, really interesting song for that. It does show the experimentation, I think, behind Romance quite well, and probably shows a lot of the experimentation behind Green Chanton and how he wants to deliver songs, how he wants his voice to be projected, kind of exploring that space, exploring how he performs and stuff like this. And I think it's a really interesting track for that, because as we said with that record, it does feel a little bit like, and not to equate every Irish band with U2, but I'm gonna, the kind of the Octung Baby to the Joshua Tree, the Skinty Fia to the Romance, the differing in styles, the differing in outlooks, the differing in textures. And I think indeed this fits in with it as a kind of a nice coda to Romance, as kind of maybe, I won't predict where they're going to go. Last time I thought they were going to go into a more trad direction. I was wrong, and they went this way. So it's incredibly interesting to see. So it's incredibly interesting to see this kind of like experimentation too. So I think it's a cool track. Before I Met You, or what is it called? Before You, I Just Forget. And it is on the playlist. Indeed, feast upon these tracks while the moon is high, for the Count shall return when the stars align. Indeed, the Count of Monte playlist shall return next week with another beautiful bounty in terms of TLNG's Irish mixtape on Spotify. But as I always say, and I'm sick of saying it, listen to any and all music how you want, when you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. Music, art, all of these things are something to be engaged with and love and enjoy in whatever way you want. Don't be bound by genre. Don't be bound by geographical location to an artist. None of that really matters. What really matters is what you like, and does it speak to you? And the best place to start off, oh my dear listener, is with the Count of Monte playlist on Spotify. Check it out, and I'll see you next week. so it goes, and there it went. But before I go, thank you for listening, viewing, and watching the Last Mixtape podcast here on YouTube, Apple, and indeed on Spotify. If you want to get in touch with the Last Mixtape podcast, please email me at stephen@thelastmixtape.com, and I will respond to your correspondence in due course. But for now, that was the Last Mixtape podcast. I was Stephen White. You were the listener. Hey, so long.